Well, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started here. Thanks to everybody on the panel for being here. McIntyre, Grace, and Brett, thank you for being here as well. So hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us tonight for a look inside a D1 film session with Grace Berger and McIntyre Webb. My name is Hunter Hawley, and I'm the founder and CEO of Blueprint Stats. As a proud Indiana University alum and a huge fan of our women's program, especially their Elite Eight run last season, I can't begin to describe how excited I am for this event. So without further ado, let me introduce our hosts. Grace Berger is a senior at IU studying sports marketing and management from Louisville, Kentucky. Unfortunately, I don't have time to list all of her accomplishments on and off the court in only the short hour that we have together. Still, for those of you who aren't familiar, Grace has twice been named to the All Big Ten first team, is a Big Ten Distinguished Scholar, is a member of the USA Basketball Women's America Cup team, and as a part of that team became a gold medalist earlier this year, actually last month, I believe. Few have achieved what Grace has been able to do throughout her career, and because of that, we are incredibly grateful and lucky that she's joined us tonight to talk about how proper use of film has played a role in her success. Thanks for being here, Grace. Also with us tonight is McIntyre Webb, who is entering his third season with the IU women's program as the team and recruitment analyst. Previously, he's been a part of the Michigan State women's basketball program, the Western Michigan men's program, and the Northern Kentucky men's program. Over the course of his career, McIntyre has time and time again demonstrated his inexplicable knowledge and love for the game of basketball, developing a reputation for his ability to extract the greatest possible value out of film, and in turn, the teams that he's a part of and the athletes that he works with. If ever it were possible for us to bring in a true pro in the world of film review, we've done just that with McIntyre. So with that said, thank you, McIntyre, for being here, and I'll hand the floor over to you to get us started.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Hunter. I thrilled to be here. Really excited to dive deep into some film. You're one of the guys that speaks my language, and in my opinion, there aren't enough of us out there. So
maybe we'll make some more today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Love this topic. Love to be here. So we'll dive in just with some film theory. Obviously there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, as the saying goes. And so some coaches have been traditionally very successful with very little film. Some coaches are wildly successful and they couldn't use more film if they tried. From any ounce of the spectrum, there's somebody out there succeeding with it. But we've all heard the phrase and probably used the phrase that film doesn't lie. And personally, that's one of my favorites because that justifies my job and passion inside the sport of basketball. But film might not lie, but it can be manipulated. And I think that's a distinction that we're going to kind of hone in on and zero in on here tonight. Film can be cut up and distributed in a way that tells a particular story. And as a coach, that can be a really, really good thing or a really, really bad thing. And if you don't, if you need an example of that, just watch some losing teams Sports Center clips, and you'll see a pretty good example of how film is telling a very poor story about their team. Film is basically a cornerstone of our program at Indiana and all the programs that I've been a part of, because it's the way that we improve both as coaches and as a program. We as coaches can improve because we're able to see our decision making, our systems as a whole in operation during a game or during practice. And then we're able to improve both ourselves and fine tune our system based on what we see in the film. But we can only improve if we're willing to be honest with ourselves and deal with the film as it's showing us the truth. Because as we discussed, it doesn't actually lie when handled properly. And obviously coaches aren't the only ones that use film. Players use a lot of film, especially in a program like ours. And so Grace, I just want to toss to you. Can you help us understand what you're looking at when you break down film on your own? What's your analysis process look like? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, before games, I always break down film by myself and kind of sit down with a couple of different of my coaches and kind of break things down. And I think, the main things I do is I obviously focus, a lot on myself and how I'm kind of doing my role for the team, whether that's making better reads, whether that's making better decisions, who I pass the ball to, and things like that. Before games, kind of in particular, I think a main thing that we do as players and our coaches emphasize for us is focusing on tendencies. It's not realistic to know every player and every single play that the other team has, but if you're given kind of a basic idea of what to do, say a team sets a lot of staggers or runs a lot of flare screens, and you're kind of giving a basis of how to guard that, I think that's kind of where we get our confidence at going into games, knowing that whatever they throw at us, we kind of have that basis, and we can kind of just react on the floor because we've been put in situations like that. No matter if they put in 10 new plays before they played us, we'll be ready for any type of actions. And then I think a big thing that me and my teammates do is kind of watch clips of teams and players that have had success over our opponents that we're about to play. So, if there's a player that, scored the ball and kind of got whatever they want offensively a couple games ago, then we'll watch that before we play and kind of use that to know the weaknesses maybe in the opponent's defense and kind of take advantage of that in the game. So I think just using film to really prepare yourself and give us confidence, I think, is what I do personally and what our team does. And that's why we're able to kind of perform at the level that we are on the court and just go into every game knowing that, we're as prepared as we possibly could be.
Awesome. Yeah. So obviously, Grace, being in the IU women's basketball program, having somebody like me who's a full-time video person, you have access to both full game film and what I'm going to call edits. And just to define a term for everybody, an edit is essentially a playlist of clips or possessions that you would pull from film and then organize in a hopefully logical manner to then display to the team. And that's kind of the juxtaposition that I'm going to run with as we get into how to prepare film. There's two essential ways that I see of watching film. You can either watch the entire game from tip to final horn, or you can watch an edit or multiple edits to hopefully give you a very good synopsis of either the game that happened, or like Grace was talking about with scouting film, player tendencies, things like that. That should be packed inside of a good edit, which allows her to save a lot of time and not watch 3 hours of opponent film and just watch 5 minutes of opponent tendencies. So again, this is kind of my process, and like we talked about, everybody's going to have a different film process and utilization implementation. So this isn't by any means a guarantee for wins or the universal best practice. This is just what works for us in our program at Indiana, and what I think makes the most efficient use of everybody's time. The important thing, I think, in preparation is, in a dumb way, to prepare. But the biggest thing I think with film is that players like Grace are smart. And so if I walked into a film session, or if our coaches walk into a film session and they're trying to ad lib or wing it, or really just fake that they know what's happening, the players are smart and they're going to figure that out. So film isn't something that we can do halfway. It requires a level of investment and handling it in a way that everybody knows that you're prepared, that you're coming at the problems that you encounter in an informed manner. I think, like I mentioned, I think the edits are the most efficient way of watching. I think that they allow you to see key moments and events while avoiding unnecessary things, like potentially watching a point guard bring the ball up the floor, things like that. They're efficient time-wise, so that, like I said, either Grace or our coaching staff doesn't have to sit down and watch a game start to finish. A lot of times that's a practical thing to do, and they still choose to do that even with the availability of edits. But there are situations, primarily like the NCAA tournament, where our turnaround time is incredibly short. And so instead of sitting down to watch 5 or 6 games, they come to me or to whoever's scouting that particular opponent, and they will then digest just a buffet of edits instead of watching games. Obviously, film is kind of a funny thing in our world as coaches, because we've already seen the game. And I've worked with people, and I'm sure that there might be people like this on the call, or people might know people like this, but I've worked with people that have said something in the realm of, I don't need to watch film, I was there, right? And that's true, 100%. You were there, you were on the sidelines, and you saw what happened, hopefully, to some degree, and you were able to truly digest in an unbiased manner what happened. The reality is that we're probably all flawed at doing that, and so we have to take our computers and watch film post game. Obviously, the huge challenge is to be objective while we're doing that. I like to use stats to inform my film watching. I feel like that helps to take the emotion out of it, whether a play happened and maybe it's memorable because of what actually happened, a spectacular layup or a really bad call or something like that. Or maybe it's memorable because it happened at a critical juncture of the game. But those are going to evoke some sort of emotional reaction out of me during my film evaluation that I don't really want, because my emotion about that might not be instructive or helpful in the long term, and 2, it might not actually be accurate. So Hunter's going to drive and show us some of the things within Blueprint of how I would start a post-game scouting for ourselves. So we'd pull up film, and the first place that I'm probably going to start is the box score. And you see our column here on the left where we've got a bunch of different options here. The box score, to me, obviously it has its limitations, and that's why we are talking about film and not stat breakdown, because there's only so many things that a traditional box score can track. And truthfully, even the advanced metrics and analytics that everybody's really championing right now, there's still only a certain amount of data that you can truthfully use without associating it to a scheme, a system, or the context in which it occurred. So this is not the end all be all, but it does help inform my decision making and what I see when I'm breaking down film. So there's a lot of different categories here that, Hunter, you can click through if you want.
Yeah.
So if we're going to break down a game like this, obviously we have all of our stats available to us. And if you just live there on the offensive tab, Hunter,
Yeah.
and you see that Grace had a turnover there. And just based on my knowledge of the game, the turnover happened rather early. And so like we're talking about the emotional reaction, the instinct is to start your film watching process, and all of a sudden Grace has a turnover, and now you're upset. And yeah, she shouldn't have turned the ball over. I can't believe she did that, things like that. And that's going to drive us in a direction that probably isn't reality. Because if we also look at that stat sheet, she had 8 assists and in 35 minutes, only having 1 turnover as a primary ball handler. That's something that as a coach, we should probably have a system in place where we can live with that amount of mistake. So that's what I'm talking about when I say that I like to be informed in my film watching by stats. Analytics, I think, are great as well. You see over in the left-hand column, there's the lineup analysis tool. That's something that even at the Division I level, a lot of programs are still figuring out how to use, how to truly implement that data. The hard part being that it would be wonderful if the lineup with all your starters in it showed at plus 100, and the lineup of your bench players showed at minus 100. That would make things really cut and dry, but the differences are so minute where you really do need the film association to determine why. It's possible that your bench players play really well as far as a plus minus as a lineup, but that might be because they only played as a group in the last 2 minutes against the other team's bench players. And the starters in this instance are at minus 10. And that could be just because they only went against the other team's starters. So these types of stats and things, they tell you a good story. They give you a good place to start. And then we watch the film off of that. And Hunter, I think you were then demoing that we can choose any of these lineups. We can click on them, see the film and the possessions that's associated to them. And be able to quickly and easily be able to draw conclusions and have an actual film analysis of that lineup. The other thing that Blueprint's got is called the stat map down there on the left-hand column. So this is going to show us all of the statistical categories and where they happen on the floor. So this one is obviously shot attempts. We can toggle to turnovers or to assists or rebounds or fouls. This is going to help us kind of paint a picture of maybe where things are happening. And then because they're associated with video, we're going to be able to figure out maybe why they're happening. So let's, Hunter, go to maybe missed 2-pointers for the entire Indiana team.
Got it. So we'll go on into the film search and grab that. We'll say all of those for Indiana players. Or did you want that in the stat map? I'm happy to show it there too.
Either one's fine. Let's do the stat map for now, and then we'll come back here because that's a nice transition to our next part.
Perfect. That probably made more sense anyway.
So just in this instance, obviously we missed a lot of shots. This game had a bunch of possessions in it, so this is probably more missed shots than we would typically see in a game just because of the amount of possessions. But I noticed that on the left-hand side of the court, there are an inordinate amount of misses near the rim. And when you're playing against a top 5 program like Maryland is and trying to beat them on the road, having 6 or 7 misses that close to the rim is obviously problematic, especially when you go back and see we lost by 4. So something that I would use this stat map for is to see what happened there. This isn't the case, but maybe it's a case that Maryland's got a really, really good rim protector and we just drove to the basket unwisely, made bad decisions at the rim, something like that. I'm going to be able to figure that stuff out pretty quickly just by seeing the stat map there and understanding that our shots and percentages and things were really low in a particular spot. So that's another way that stats and data will inform my film watching. And then Hunter, you can go to film search and we'll start dialing in here. This is really how I do most of my film breakdown. I like to have everything grouped by either play type or the lineup like we saw earlier. It just allows you to dial in a little more specifically on something that maybe you saw live, maybe you saw it watching the game from tip to horn, or maybe you saw it in a different edit that you were watching that wasn't the point of the edit, and you're trying to maybe investigate a little bit in that direction. So let's do the same thing that we did. Let's try, let's see Maryland's missed shots and see if we did anything incredibly good on defense to cause those.
Yeah, we can
So now
start
we've got-
here. Looks like their first one wasn't until 8 minutes, 24 seconds into the game. They came out pretty hot, I understand.
Oh, they did. They have a tendency to do that.
So we'll start here.
And so now we've got this really, really easy, simple presentation that's almost automatic. A good shot contest by Grace, and all of a sudden a really good all Big Ten player misses a jump shot that she makes a lot. But that playlist edit type of look there in the film search function is really powerful, just because it allows us to see so many dynamic different things all at once, all in a row, and kind of dial in. Now there are two things I do kind of want to circle back to, and that's that in our preparation that we've talked about being vital, we have to keep in mind, especially at our level, no matter how good or bad a game was, I don't want to make that a dramatic thing. There's always a level of good and bad that I can show that gives recognition about our success, which might be limited in a particular game, but you're always going to do something good. And I think it's important to live on that, even in the worst games. But it also keeps us hungry to improve, because on the other side of that coin, you're always going to do something wrong, or maybe not wrong, but something that can be fine-tuned. Maybe the timing on a set, maybe your defensive positioning, something like that, on top of all of the obvious actual mistakes. And we also have to keep in mind, as we're building edits, the context in which we're showing the edit. We have to keep in mind that we're going to, at the Division I level, we're going to show team film after a game, and then each position coach will meet with their players and break down film individually with them. So there's a time and place for any type of clip. If a player makes a boneheaded mistake, it's not always the best idea to put that in the team film edit and call them out in front of their teammates, because that will mentally shut down a lot of people. On the other hand, some people actually really respond to that. And so putting it in there and calling it to attention in front of their teammates will actually alleviate the issue in the future, because that's how they respond best. So there's a level of having to know our players, know our personnel, and know the point that we're trying to get across, and then handle it in the appropriate manner. So a lot of times you see that positive concepts will get talked about in front of people in the team setting, and then negative concepts will happen kind of one-on-one. My philosophy on that is that if a person screws up within a team concept or system, then that needs to be addressed in front of everybody. Because, for example, if Grace wasn't on help side defense where she needed to be, the next possession, Allie might not be where she needs to be. And that was a fixable issue that I could have addressed in film by pointing out Grace's mistake. Now, if Grace turned the ball over and I was angry about it, I can probably handle that one-on-one because I'm not trying to embarrass anybody. I'm not trying to make things uncomfortable for Grace or for any of her teammates. I just want to help better the team and the program, right? So those are two things just to keep in mind when you're building edits, that there is a time and a place for each type of clip. And obviously to be as unbiased as possible when putting edits together and watching your film. And so obviously from the preparation, once we have an edit ready to go, the next step is showing it to our players. Grace, what kind of preparation, either for team or individual film or both, what kind of preparation do you have for a film session, and how do you learn best from film?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you covered, I think, is kind of our mindset too. I think what our coaches and what McIntyre is really good at is the stats from the game do kind of make it obvious what needs to be focused on in a film session. So you're not just, rarely ever are we ever just watching a full game through or full clips through. We'll just pull individual clips of like 2 or 3 of the main big themes in that game. Like obviously in the Maryland game, like you said, it was maybe poor shot selection with their rim protectors. And as you can see here, they went on a 10-0 run to start the game. So obviously poor defensive execution at the start. So I think they'll just pull like 2 or 3 big themes and then have maybe 5 clips for each theme. And that's why I also, to second McIntyre, I think it's important to have a plan going into it, because as players, we have a lot going on. We have school, we have practice, we have individual film. Mm-hmm. So if it gets over, 20, 30 minutes, I think that's when you start to lose players' attention, lose their interest, and in all honesty, and it might be kind of counterintuitive. And then another thing that I think our players have voiced in the past, and me, myself, I think timing's a big emphasis on film, and you don't want to wait too long after a game to watch film. So if you wait, 2, 3, 4 days after we get beat by Maryland to watch the game, I think it just causes us to dwell on the game for longer than it needs to be, maybe causes a few bad practice, could even affect a couple games. So I think what we're big on is really watching it the next morning, learning from it, learning the good, learning the bad, and then just kind of shelving it and moving on to the next game. Because in a high school season and a college season, you have a lot of games. You kind of don't have too long to focus on one game. You got to keep moving on. And then again, like McIntyre said, I think having a good mix of good things and bad things. If it's all negative, any player is gonna, not take that in the best way. So I think what we do usually is we start with the good things to kind of, emphasize that in every game there is positives. You can, have good things, whether you get beat by 20, whether you lose by, whether you win by 20. So, to me, I think when pointing out mistakes in the game, like McIntyre said, try to limit how much you single out individual players, and don't make it, kind of a blaming session, but really more of a teaching session. And later on individually, I think you can kind of sit a player down and go over what they're struggling with, but there's no need to do that and kind of shame a player in front of their teammates. So really just focus on the team and things that we can learn from as a team and that can help us win, and never just shaming an individual player.
Yeah, those are great things. I love how you hit some things that I don't think of, because as a coach, I want to show tons of film, right? And you hit it right on the head that there have been a lot of times in film sessions that we stretch it to 30 to 40 minutes, and there are a lot of eyes that glaze over, even at the Division I college level, where the girls truly are locked in, but it's just too much. You're at the point of diminishing returns, probably about 20 to 25 minutes with our girls. And like Grace said, we rarely will watch the full game. And in my experience, if you are watching the full game afterwards, that meant that a lot of things went very wrong, and that is not fun for anybody. So yeah, typically we'll watch edits, and it's very rare to watch the full game, but I do like that you brought those points up. So now we're going to transition into a time that we're essentially going to dive into an actual film session, and what that would look like as far as actually having edits created, what type of things we're going to be looking at and dialing in on. Like Grace said, we choose a couple of themes based on our analysis of the game, things that we really want to improve on. things that are controllable, right? We're not trying to go out and change a referee's call. We're trying to fine tune our own team, our own program, help a player make better decisions, things like that. So we really want film to be something that really, like Grace said, if we start with the good, we transition to the bad, and then hopefully the practice plan goes and attacks those things that we just saw on film to correct our bad areas from the previous game. So we're gonna navigate over, Hunter, if you want to studio.
Yeah. So this is kind of where a lot of the prep work is going on, and now we're gonna kind of look into the actual edits themselves. I'll go ahead and actually, McIntyre, give you,
Sure.
if Zoom will cooperate with me here, I'll give you the remote control thing at that point. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've got here just our edits. There's 6 here. We may or may not get through all of these, but this is just a little example of what might happen for our program. We'll start with good O, just get us feeling good a little bit. So we see here that there's a selection of clips on the left-hand side. This is where all of our clips previously will live, but we'll back up a step. So if we're in our, let's say, Michigan post game, this is going to look a lot like the film search feature that we looked at just a few minutes ago. We can search anything in here. So let's say that we want to watch anything that Grace Berger did. We can just type her name, and you see that number 34 Grace Berger populates on all of these things. We can see all the statistical categories that she participated in. Again, that's a lot of fun. You can see really cool things really quickly. Fast break layup, stuff like that. So once we see a clip that we like, I'll just take this assist, for example. We're going to hit this plus button. It's going to bring that clip down here. We're then going to see that clip populate here, and that's this one. And I just added it to the edit down here. I don't want this clip on the edit, so I'm just going to hit the trash can there to delete it. But this is then the edit that I've previously put together through that process, right? So I found the clips, I found the things that I wanted to hit Grace with, and we're going to lock in on those. I can hit this zoom icon and zoom in a little larger so that my playhead is a little bigger, or I can kind of see some of the details down here, like 2-point field goal make, things like that, a little more clearly. But we'll just start the edit.
May need to hit the restart button to the right.
There we go. Yep. And so these are just some good offensive clips. This is just our base offense. You see everybody's elevated above the free throw line. Grace sees an opportunity to go ISO, rips, baseline. That's a bucket. Great job. This clip here, you see down on the bottom, we're getting into low shot clock territory, and Grace, a lot of times, whether by design or happenstance, finds herself with the ball in her hands in these situations, which is great for her and for us, because she does things like this, where she's able to break down a defender, pull up, 2 points, saved a possibly bad possession there. Then we get Grace playing off of ball screens really well. Maryland plays a very aggressive switching defense, so we knew that going in. That's a tendency that we would have explained to her as a coaching staff, and so she knows that when her teammate's about to set a screen, the defense is going to switch, and so she knows to try to exploit that. This particular clip, she turns down the screen, elevates, hits a jump shot with a little friendly roll. At that point in the ball game, we could use all the friendliness we could get. Another one, we got a transition screen. This one going towards the baseline, but she's going to use it, gets switched. That's Maryland's 4-man now guarding her because of Maryland's crazy lineups. This girl's actually playing the 3. Regardless, this girl can't guard Grace. She knows that they were switching the ball screen, and she knows that she's about to get a favorable matchup. She attacks, gets 2 points at the rim. Again, great job, great offense, great awareness of the situation. And then another one, ball screen, switch. She can't guard her. Have some of that, right? So those are some good things. Obviously, there's not too much coaching to do in the good. We just want to bring to light some of the successes of the team. Most of those things that you saw on that clip are things that Grace works on during May, June, and July. Those aren't necessarily things that we practiced on July 3rd, right before that game. Those are things that Grace really dedicated time to during the summer to become better. So then we'll switch to a different edit. I don't have any changes or anything to worry about, so I can just hit quit there. We'll take a couple clips of bad offense. So like we talked about, these are going to be a little more teaching points, less just complaining or griping or emotional basketball plays, but more something that we can teach her with. This one here, she gets a handoff, beats her man downhill, but kind of works herself into a bad spot of 2 long, tall defenders on her, and she's trying to contort her body for a shot. We would probably prefer if she stopped about here, kicked it out to a teammate, and then relocated to the corner. Obviously, we like her trying to make a play. 2020 hindsight, it didn't work out well. And so in that instance, we're trying to help her see when these types of defenders are in the area, it's going to be best to pitch it, re-attack. This one here, she's going to get a rebound, get the outlet in transition. And again, get too deep. And that's something that she'll admit to you. She gets a lot of discussion about in the season itself. We'll watch that one again. Again, we're not trying to embarrass her or anything like that, but right now she should be seeing that there are 4 players loaded to her side of the court, and being aware that there's probably not going to be much available at the rim if she does try to go. Should probably pull it out, try and set something up. Instead, she forces it, turns the ball over. Again, we like her trying to make plays, but in those instances, we just need her to be a little more aware and safe with the ball. This one here, she gets the steal here on defense. 1-on-1 in transition. She knows this. We don't have to tell her this, but we just want to point it out to her as a point of emphasis. We got to finish those layups. We're playing top 10, top 20 programs night in, night out in the Big Ten. Those aren't second chance opportunities that we're going to get very often. We have to finish that one the first time to allow us to truly capitalize and give us the best chance of winning. And then we'll look at some offensive decision making. These are really good instances here. We're going to run kind of a fake ball screen. She's going to curl over top. The idea of this set is to get a post up right here. Our point guard makes a great read, sees that they double the post because we've got an All-American post player. The mistake that they made is they left our All-American wing player on the elbow, and now this girl is in jail, and she doesn't have any good decision to make. She either doesn't guard Grace Berger at the elbow, or she doesn't guard our 33% stretch 4 from the 3-point line. So she doesn't have a good decision. She guards the ball, leaves it wide open. Grace makes a phenomenal decision. The elbow is Grace's spot. That's where she's most comfortable. She'd probably tell you the same. She would have been completely in her right to shoot that ball, but makes a phenomenal decision to pass it to a teammate for a better shot. Oh, and this is that same flip. I must have hit that on accident.
It was a good clip. Yeah, we'll watch it again.
Yeah, we're a fan. All right, so this one, Grace gets the ball in transition. And again, she's not a point guard necessarily, but she has the ball in her hand a lot as a primary ball handler, pushing the pace, sees our All-American post player matched up against a guard. There's only one choice to make there. Get her the ball. That's an easy assist. Again, gets the rebound, outlet, All-American post player on the run. Just chuck it towards the rim. She's going to catch it, score it, 2 points. Great basketball. Those were great decisions that she made. Those are how she helps our team in being a primary ball handler for us, a playmaker in a lot of different spots. Obviously, 2 of those are transition, so it's not situationally a ton of different ways, but that's only 3 clips. Obviously, we put her in a lot of different scenarios to help our team at a high level. Then we've got some defensive clips. I'm going to start with the bad D just because I don't want to end us on a bad note here. I want us to go out thinking that it's fun to watch film and we like good clips, right? So we've got some bad D here. These are clips that I remember we showed her immediately after the game. This girl, I can't guard Grace Berger. Well, she's on the floor for a reason, right? And that reason is that she can shoot at a really high level. We get some matchups messed up here through the flow of the play. Grace ends up matched up with her, which isn't her matchup, but we still would teach tendencies. So we have to know and have urgency on the closeout. She's a little bit late, doesn't jump on the closeout. That's 3 points. Same kind of scenario here. Grace kind of loses her on the penetration, makes a wave at the steal, doesn't get it, and is a little late on the closeout then. That's a bucket going the other way. This one here, Maryland runs a money set. And for, I guess, those that don't know money as an action, it's just a box set on the elbows and the blocks. The players from one side of the lane just run over for a post ISO. So they're supposed to enter to the wing just like this. We, as a basketball system and how we run our defense, we're not trying to gamble and make a home run play like this. We just want to stay solid, stay in front. Grace takes herself out of this play by gambling for the pass, doesn't get it, and this girl's able to attack downhill, cause bad help, dump off for an easy layup. So that's something that we would sit down and say, hey, we got to have you guard scouting report defense there. Obviously, like I said, players are smart. They know that what they did caused a domino effect of happening there. So we don't have to bash her over the head with it, but we do want to present that to her and say, hey, there's a reason that we scout the way that we scout and decide how to play these plays, right? This one here is going to be transition defense. Not really sure what's going on here, right? Because she's over here guarding our bench while I believe the Big Ten Player of the Year is making a beeline for the rim, and that doesn't end good for the Hoosiers. So we just have to have her have a little more awareness there in transition that there was nobody in her area at that point. It would maybe be a little different if there was a knockdown 3-point shooter streaking to the corner. I'm not trying to leave Steph Curry over there all alone in the corner because that's worth 1 more point and it's just as good as a layup for him. But in that instance, Grace could have had the awareness to slide over and help out there in transition. So those are the bad. We'll rotate here to some good ones. And like I said, and Grace hit on this when she was talking, most of our film and instructional areas are going to be things kind of related to a scouting report. Those are things that we can fix. Those are things that our girls study and are very aware of going into games. And so that's usually a huge area of success for us, like they're going to be here in these clips. And they're perfect things to show in a film session because they are controllable, right? So this one here, Maryland runs this kind of Iverson action that we call it, just kind of a slice across the top of the lane. They run this a lot of different ways, and this girl here is taught to read it. So if Grace is going under this, she's taught to pop it to the 3-point line, like what happens here. If she doesn't go under this and she trails it, then this girl's taught to curl and come right here to the block for either a layup or a post up. And they're amazingly efficient at running this play. And so that's why we taught her, go under this screen here, because if you don't, they're going to get a layup. So she does what we want her to do, right? She goes under, gets hit a little bit, but for the most part, follows our scouting report, they hit a shot. That's good defense, right? And that's one of the hard things about watching film, is that there's going to be a lot of scenarios where the result of the play doesn't necessarily indicate what happened. And so if we're watching a playlist or an edit and it's just all of the made shots, that doesn't necessarily indicate that every defensive possession there was bad. It might just mean that they've got a girl that's all Big Ten and she made a shot on us. And you know what? That happens. We got to get the ball and go play offense this time. So this one here, again, it's going to be the same play. It's a little cut off there because the TV copy, but she goes under. She recovers in time. No shot attempt here. Guards this slip. Then the ball screen comes. We're switching here because of their personnel. This girl, again, this is the same girl from earlier who can shoot. So we don't want to guard this in a way that's going to compromise our big and not allow a recovery. So we switch it. Grace gets back into the play, stunt, create a turnover. That's our ball. Great job. It's great scouting report defense. Scouting report can be as simple as what we call KYP, know your personnel. And that's what she did there. She knew who the shooter was. She knew how we were guarding that ball screen and got back in the play, made something positive happen. This is going to be the first play of the game against Michigan. They run a money action because Big Ten Player of the Year down here. This is how we decided that we wanted to guard their money action. We were just going to allow them to throw it anywhere but there. And Grace just sits right in her lap, completely preventing that pass, exactly like we taught her to do. So at this point, this is a great defensive possession. We don't care what happens next. This is exactly what we want to happen as far as scenarios go, right? They end up just reversing the ball, getting into some other stuff. But their main action and the action going towards their Big Ten Player of the Year is nullified because of great scouting report defense by Grace. And here's another simple action. It's kind of a flex cut there. It's all going to end here. Just kind of some false action for a post ISO. Again, Big Ten Player of the Year. And over here, we've got a stagger screen just as a distraction. Grace, as the defender of the bottom of the stagger, is going to be our default help person here because Nikki here at the top of the stagger has to be aware if Allie gets hit or if her man slips or anything like that. She's not able to help either on this drive or pass. So that has to be Grace's job. Grace is aware of that, sees an errant pass, goes and gets it. It's great scouting report defense. Again, for good clips, there's not much that we're saying except for great job. Continue to study your scout, continue to make those kind of plays because that's exactly how we win games. We're more prepared and we go and execute, right?
McIntyre, you want to go ahead and hop into some Q&A or? Well, this is a two clip, or we can also finish this up if you want to go here.
Sure. This is just some fun. Grace got burned by this girl earlier. It's not going to happen again. They run this play wrong, but Grace knows who she's guarding, locks up, gets through a screen. That's great effort. That's exactly what we want out of our team, out of our players. That's our best player getting on the ground for a loose ball. Again, lock up, get through the double stag, and do everything that we ask of her. Again, not a great result, but Grace did 100% everything that we were looking at there. So that's just an example. I hope that was informative as to how we watch film, what kind of things we're looking for, how we're trying to teach and instruct. And yeah, Hunter, I'll let you take the lead here as we jump into some Q&A.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for kind of taking us through those progressions and all that. So definitely the chat is open. Anybody who has any questions, definitely feel free to pop them in there. But in the meantime, while we're kind of waiting for some of those to come in, definitely I wanted to kind of kick us off with kind of a question for both of you from two different perspectives. So it's interesting that we've got both the coach and player perspective here. But yeah, the first big question I've got is, right after a game, is that when, McIntyre, for you, you understand exactly what themes you want to kind of instill into a film session? Do you understand what types of edits you're going to make right after a game? Is it something that requires a little bit more in-depth analysis? And then also on the flip side of that for you, Grace, is it something when you're walking into a team film session that maybe you already are able to kind of assume what some of the reads are going to be, or, you know, just kind of a little bit of a comment on that maybe?
Yeah, so for me, my post-game responsibilities deal very little initially with the game that we just played. I've always said that by the time we're playing a game, I'm focused on 3 games out, just because my job deals a lot more with scouting than it does with self-scout.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really part of those conversations as far as main takeaways from the game or themes from the game. But that is something that the other coaches are doing because they handle the post-game breakdowns. So they all meet usually about 15-20 minutes, depending on the result of the game. They'll get together, they'll decide, you know, what was important, what stuck out to them. And that always is liable to change with film. You know, as we talked about, sometimes you have a feeling about, oh, well, Grace turned the ball over too much. And then you really get back and you realize that she didn't. And maybe the stat keeper gave her 2 turnovers that you didn't even feel were hers. So even if the stat sheet looks like maybe she was careless with the ball, that wasn't truly the case. Or in an instance where, you know, she gave up a 3, she actually followed the scouting report exactly as you wanted her to. You know, there's really nothing there to harp on, even though it maybe felt like it at the time. Yeah, so that's a process that our staff as a whole goes through, but it's not necessarily something that I'm deeply involved in right after the game.
Yeah, and then for me, and a lot of my teammates, right after the game, will kind of watch the film of the full game on our own. And I think, you know, when you watch it as a player right after the game, you're probably more focused on yourself and kind of being hard on yourself and the mistakes and maybe even the things you did good. But then the coaches the next day in film kind of have a more of an overview and non-biased view of the game. So they probably point out more big picture things that we probably wouldn't be able to see as players, but that they can kind of see from their point of view.
Perfect. All right, well, we've got a couple of questions here. So one is, I know 20 minutes is ideal or is the ideal max for film sessions. If we have back-to-back game days, would you suggest combining a post-game session with a pre-game session, or should we break them up?
Yeah, from a coaching standpoint, this kind of hits what I mentioned earlier. You know, we want to show all of the film. We have all of the edits. You know, we want to sit down and digest it all because we feel like it's important. That's why it made it into an edit. And I've seen this handled a lot of different ways on the staffs that I've been on. At Northern Kentucky University, we did what we did, and that was a post-game edit every single game. And that was obviously scouting edits to prepare for the next team. So that meant that our film sessions were going to be long. And sometimes our head coach would give a directive of keeping a particular edit short, or maybe we only watched ball screen defense or something like that. We tried to extract only principles from a previous game that we're going to apply. So theoretically, if we played against a team that only played zone defense, but the next team we were going to play only plays man defense, then we're not going to watch any of our offensive clips in that post-game session. Even though there's stuff to extract from those, we're not going to spend time on that because that's not going to help us in the immediate future of our game coming up now. So my real answer would probably be do what you do. Don't feel like there's one solid way of handling it that's right or wrong. There's a difference in every program, and I think that if you are really, really passionate about handling it a certain way and doing post game and pre-game, make them work together as best as possible, but stay true to that. Stay true to who you are and the values that you have for your program. But on the flip side, kind of like we did in the NCAA tournament this year, we didn't even touch the game that we just played. When we beat NC State, when we beat Belmont or VCU in the first round, we never watched that stuff. We everybody on staff went immediately to the next game. Nobody watched the previous game because it doesn't matter, right? And we only have a set amount of time to prepare for the next game, which is of the utmost importance. Yeah. So yeah, I would just say to do what's authentic for you and your program, what you value, what's aligned with that and who you are.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Brian, for that question. This next one, I think, Grace, this would be perfect to have you answer, actually having come up and use tools like this all throughout your career and whatnot. This is from Megan Kennedy. For those of us who coach younger ages, what suggestions do you have for teaching kids to be good film students?
I think one tip that I really enjoy and would have enjoyed doing more when I was younger is maybe watching clips of some older players. So maybe watching some college clips and kind of, maybe players that they look up to at their local college or their local professional team, and just kind of making it interesting that way, and kind of seeing, them be successful and then kind of relating it back to those players, I think would be fun. And then if you're doing it by watching your own games, I think just showing them that it can give them confidence, and it can give them a lot of success on the floor, and kind of maybe watching film for 10-15 minutes and then going straight on the floor and kind of physically going through it, just so they kind of see how it directly relates to their in-game success. It can really help them in the future, because I think if they see that it will benefit them, at least for me when I was younger, then that immediately interested me if I knew it could help me and my team win a basketball game.
Yeah. And I think that's perfect that you hit on that too. I think that we focus a lot on the ability film has to make these adjustments and to really kind of find the corrections in a team system or even for an individual player. But particularly probably at the younger age groups, it also is such a great tool for confidence building, which obviously is such a big part of this. And I'm sure even the higher levels you go, that's still the case, but particularly at the younger levels, I think that's so key, is to really use it for that confidence.
And if I may piggyback on that question, kind of ask Grace you a question kind of following that. I was a manager for those that don't know in here. I was a manager for the women's basketball team. So I know Grace McIntyre, but I also work for Blueprint now. That's how I got them on here. So thanks to them for coming on. But so Grace, piggyback then. You guys have notepads and your binders full of plays and whatnot. How does that help you stay attached and to what you're doing, what you're watching?
Yeah, so we always get a physical scouting report. And really, I kind of just take my own notes and then really look at that based on what McIntyre or one of our other coaches are saying as we're going through film. So they kind of, we watch film and then I'll write down what I take from it or what the coaches are really emphasizing from it. And then just kind of, that does keep me engaged, because I can put it in terms I understand and look back at later. So, every individual always has a notepad in hand just to kind of keep themselves engaged instead of just, sitting there looking at a screen for 20-30 minutes. We're kind of, writing it down and really engaging with the film ourselves.
Yeah, kind of being a student of the game isn't too dissimilar from just being a student, right? It's all about not necessarily just the material that's presented to you, but really what matters is how that material is then giving you the takeaways that you need. Okay, and then I think we've got time for one more with a minute here to go. And this one is from an anonymous attendee. How much time does it take to put together your film edits to show that 20 to 25 minutes of film to the players?
Yeah, so this is going to depend on probably more of your tech savviness and how familiar you are with maybe what you want to show starting your film analysis process, and then how savvy you are with being able to make that happen. I'm a full-time person doing edits with film. So I've gotten really, really good over the past handful of years. It doesn't take me very long, an hour, probably 2 hours at most any given day. But there are a lot of things that you can do to make an edit better, fine tune it, things like that. But I would say it's about an hour to 2 hours to have a good product that is well prepared to show the girls and to very truly have that prepared stance that we were talking about early to go into and present for a good edit.
Yeah, and reducing that time is a big, piece of what we're about with Blueprint, right? It's putting the tools in the hands of coaches and players to not only, hopefully increase the value and the actual, I guess, usefulness of the end product edit, but also to kind of make that a quicker process for coaches and teams to get that stuff turned around. So that's kind of what it's all about.
We in the video world constantly hear stories from our head coaches, from other people who are explaining to us that back in the day, they had to physically drive to a middle city to meet with an opponent, exchange literal physical film, and then literally cut tape like VHS tapes and splice them together to make edits. We thankfully don't live in that era any longer. We have software like Blueprint that acquires the film for us automatically, or we send them film, and then it gets broken down, distributed in ways that make it so much easier. So yeah, that's definitely the case, that a good software is the very first step to making that a quick process, so that you don't have to cut film literally or splice something together in iMovie or anything like that. These kind of software solutions are incredibly valuable in that regard.
Yeah. Well, I would like to just take this opportunity to thank Grace and McIntyre. You guys have been absolutely phenomenal. I think that everybody can agree this has been a great learning opportunity. I think that I know I'm going to be watching this video back, even just for my own kind of personal use. I'm obviously pretty into this stuff. So
that's what we're talking about. Come on, film review.
There we go. Yeah, I think we may have converted some more people to our side as we talked about. But it was a question in the Q&A. I'll address it kind of to everybody. We are going to be sending out an email tonight with the link to this video. It'll just be a YouTube link. You can review it on your own time whenever you want. So if you were, unable to make it for the first part or something, you can definitely kind of go back and review. So thank you all very much. Be on the lookout for that email. And thank you all for coming out.
Thanks, Hunter.
Thank you.